What was the turning point? I mean, you talk about the play there, because
Yeah.
I also read that in the early 2000s, you decided to go off treatment,
Yeah.
which is a big no-no. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
want to live, you take your
Yeah.
pill or your pills
Pills,
every day.
yeah.
Talk to me about your decision for why you went off, but also then tell me why it was so important for you to go back on and what that turning point was.
Well, basically what happened, because of my situation when I was diagnosed and all that, I qualified for a lot of studies. So I'd rather volunteer and be a part of the studies. Some things I learned about myself that, I couldn't do a double-blind test because it was too emotional.
What's a double-blind test?
They'll give you medication, you'll qualify for a study,
Yeah.
but you don't know if you're part of the
Got it. Okay.
study or not, if you're
Yeah.
on real medication or if you're on a placebo.
Right.
And I've done, I did a few of those, but they were just so exhausting,
I bet.
emotionally. When the protease inhibitors came around, they just blast your system heavy duty. And so like the side effects from the protease inhibitors were just horrendous.
So it was the side effects that made you go, I want off this. Thank God we've come so far nowadays that those side effects are very few and far between. But you stopped. What happened to your health when you stopped?
I felt fine. The big change was, actually I stayed stable for a long time. And then at one point, I had 11 T cells and my viral load was in the millions.
Wow.
And so
What's that moment like when you find that out?
I was like, holy shit, I got to do something. I've got to do something about this.
So is that the point you decide to really start living?
I don't know that I'd say really start living because I don't know that I wasn't not living.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
But I think that it kind of made things more real to me. And when I got those test results, my nurse at the time, because I was seeing this one doctor who, God love him, he very intelligent, very smart, but he's straight, but very knowledgeable. But it was hard for me to express the side effects of the medications. And so his nurse pulled me aside and said, you really should go see this other doctor who was diagnosed around the same time you were, who's been in a lot of the same studies that you've been in, so he understands you can talk to him. And so I started seeing him, and it was great, because here, gay man, about my age, who's had similar experiences, we could talk candidly about our sex life. We could talk candidly about the side effects,
which
of the medication.
especially back then, could be, as you said, pretty horrific and
yeah.
shocking to the system, and sometimes a little embarrassing to talk about.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
I talk to people your age, and I mean that in the most loving way.
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome. But we talk about PTSD.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people living with HIV, your age and older, who talk about survivor's guilt. Have you ever had any of that, and can you tell me how that manifests?
Well, there were so many people, people that we knew, loved, and admired that didn't make it. And so it just, oftentimes, I would catch myself, well, why the hell am I here? It just seemed so random. But I think it also kind of drives home the point of having a purpose, being able to speak your truth, be authentic, also to be vulnerable. to share that vulnerability, and you never know what it's going to do, how it's going to affect somebody. I've been really fortunate. I've had some young men who've come to me and said, "Oh, I just seroconverted," and they had a doctor's appointment, and I went to their doctor's appointment when they were talking about treatment options, and because I've taken just about everything out there, right? So I've gone down the road of the different treatments. So because oftentimes when you go to those appointments, you're not really hearing everything. And
I still don't hear everything. I go into my doctor's appointment, and here's what I want to know. Am I undetectable still? Am I healthy? And is there anything else I need to learn or know?
Yeah.
I think we've got to sort of break it down in the most simplest ways.
Yeah. The other thing that I learned that helped me cope with it, it's like when my doctor put my file in the cabinet, done, that's where I put it to.
Interesting. Yeah, because
it's just numbers.
Right, and we're living with it. But that's a reason why, people said, well, why did you wait 11 years to talk about your HIV status? And I said, because it doesn't really affect what I do from a living, from what I do as a job. I mean, I take my pill at breakfast time. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with Plus Life, is say that's it. You take a pill or you take two pills, Your life now takes you around the world. You educate people about HIV. What's your approach? What do you think the best approach is to educate people about HIV in this day and age?
Really just be yourself, to share your experience. I share who I am completely, whether it be HIV AIDS, whether it be my sexual identity, whether it be being in an abusive relationship, dyslexia, depression, all of that. All of that is part of me.
So we're in almost 2020 now. How do you think HIV stigma has changed from what it was in 1988 and early 90s to now? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? Is it different?
I really don't know. I don't get out much.
Well, look, we've got all this food. We'll be eating this. As soon as the cameras stop, we're going to stuff our faces.
We're going to stuff our faces. But no, I don't. I think in some ways, there was a period of time, I know, when I was out there talking at college campuses and all that. And it's like, oh, HIV is treatable, just take a pill. It's manageable.
Right, it's a chronic management.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I really encourage them, don't go there, because it's very expensive. You have to have insurance.
Well, that's a bit of a myth I'm going to debunk with you, though, because maybe back then. Now, the drug companies, if you don't, they will give you the medicine.
They will.
But that to be said, it's not like it's made easy.
No.
There's a lot of
hoops to jump through.
Well, and that goes to the point. If you're a 28-year-old man like you were, I was 27, or even younger now, you get told you're HIV positive, but there are all these programs, but you've got to jump through 100 hoops to get to them.
Yeah.
You'd agree, though, that stigma is what is potentially just keeping this thing thriving?
Yeah, I mean, especially with the increase through the Bible Belt, it's like that's a little disconcerting, because the education's out there. It's just being open and honest about who you are and who you share
intimate
moments with.
You equals you has kind of changed everything. Undetectable equals untransmittable too.
Yeah.
In messaging. So, as the elder statesman, as I said, almost 60, what would you say to the 28-year-old Greg Louganis who's just about to go into those Olympic Games in Seoul and found out he was HIV positive?
What would I say to him?
What would you say to him now, with everything you've lived through, with the life you've lived, with what you've gone through, and with what you now know about HIV and because I think I also read somewhere that you said, HIV has kind of motivated you in a way.
Yeah.
What would you say to the...
At times, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because it kind of gave me a purpose. I think, we're like right on the cusp of potentially a cure and all that, which is really exciting. But at the same time, I worry about some of my friends who have been HIV positive all this time, and it's so much of their identity. I mean, it's almost like retiring from a sport. When you retire from your sport, everybody knew me as a diver.
Right.
And that was my identity.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of people do that with illnesses, with HIV or whatever. I think it's important to really explore who you are as a whole person, and that is, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things that make up us as human beings.
I'm curious, if they came out with a cure for HIV, say in 5 years' time, you're 65, and they said you go on this regime of drugs, it's this, would you take it?
Sure. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, because it would be a greater service because I know I would be a part of a research. And so if I can help in any way, aid, and that's the reason why I did a lot of the, the studies,
right?
To try and gather the information. I've been a guinea pig all my life.
Yeah.
I mean, they've taken muscle biopsies from me and all kinds of
And you still look
stuff.
fantastic. Greg, lastly, as we wrap this up, message for the person that's too afraid, that is living with HIV, standing in the shadows, and is just petrified, still with all the knowledge. U equals U. You can't transmit it if you're healthy and undetectable. You can live a full, exciting and adventurous life like you. What's your message to that person who's quaking in their boots saying, life's over?
I think the most important thing is find somebody to share who you are with completely and, without reservation, to share fearlessly and honestly. Because once you have that, then you have that support that you need. I mean, I was terrified to come out to my coach in '88 because I was afraid he was going to take it easy on me in preparation for the Seoul Olympics. But when I did come out to him and just totally broke down, I knew he had my back. And I knew that he was somebody that I could really count on to be there for me. And that was my coach, Ron O'Brien.
Yeah. Greg Louganis.
Yeah.
You're a bit of a hero of mine. It's been a real treat getting to sit down and have a long chat with you. We can dive into this food. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak to us. If you want any more information on anything we've talked about in today's Plus Talk, you can check out pluslifemedia.com or follow us at Plus Life Media across all social media platforms. We will post a little after talk, extra bonus footage in the coming days. But in the meantime, Greg Louganis, thank you very much. And thank you very much.